A very good evening to you. Welcome to Kodima TV, Home of Knowledge. This is the voice of the captain. Tonight, I bring to you a closer look into two of the most ubiquitous political strategies that are taking a center stage in Kenya's political battlefield as we edge closer and closer to 2022 general elections. Now, these are BBI, or Building Bridges Initiative, and the Hustlers versus Dynasties narrative. Before we continue, I want to appreciate the fact that the adoption of these two political strategies has brought with it a paradigm shift in Kenya's political and campaign style. From that loosely based on tribal fault lines, to that based on constitutional change, of course, and general societal development when it comes to the pro-hustler narrative. And of course, as we speak, fellow Kenyans, I know very well that you, as a listener, have taken a side, which is not bad because it's a traditional norm. In a battlefield, one has to take one side. But then, before you took that side, what prompted your choice? That's a big question. Because according to me, or according to thinkers like me, we will tell you that the bridge is too rotten and it will break the moment you set your first foot on it to drown you. At the same time, the wheelbarrow propounded by the pro-hustler narrative proponent is damaged beyond repair. And I want to tell you, they are just mere political tools that will be used as a medium for these politicians to get to power. Why am I saying that? Let's start with Building Bridges Initiative, for example. I want to take you back in 2005 after Raila had fallen out with Honorable Mwai Kibaki. Now, Mwai Kibaki propounded a constitutional change. Mr. Odinga said no and urged his followers to successfully vote no, and that constitutional change did not happen. 5 years later, after Mr. Odinga shook hands with Mwai Kibaki in 2010, there was a successful constitutional amendment, and in 2013, Mr. Odinga garnered more than half and allegedly won the election in 2013. Now, 10 years down the line, we are talking another constitutional amendment. Why is it that every electioneering period must be preceded by a constitutional amendment? Because Mr. Odinga has realized that with him winning the constitutional amendment campaign, so winning the referendum, leading the successful campaign to win the referendum, gives him just the popularity he wants. And I believe I can predict that even 10 or so years from now, Kenyans will be talking another constitutional amendment campaign. In as much as it's a very healthy thing for a country's constitution to evolve and system of government to change with time, just in as much as the country is flexible to such kinds of changes, it's a sign of mature democracy. But then do we have to do it so frequently that it now, the general idea behind constitutional amendments now become dilute? Do we have to change even when there is nothing to change? Ask yourself that. Now, coming to hustlers versus dynasties narrative, fellow Kenyans, someone keeps reminding us about our poverty day in, day out. And of course, he does it in a way that looks like he's empowering everyone to come from where they are to become what they are, what he is. Now, I'm not against or I'm not criticizing the general idea of empowerment. But the main question I have is the empowerment worth it? Because according to me, it is not. Why am I saying this? Hustlers versus dynasty narrative is propounding a kind of a Marxist a shift of system from a capitalist society into a Marxist society. Because according to pro-Marxist thinkers, there is a certain group of elites at the top of the food chain of a state who are in constant efforts to manipulate and to deprive the common man and the working class the fruits or the benefits of the fruits of their labor. Now, if you take a keen look into the hustler versus dynasties narrative, the narrative has divided the country into two antagonizing classes. That is a class of the hustler, which refer to the common man, the working class, and a group of ruling class who are seated somewhere and are in constant effort to make sure these workers keep working too hard as they feed on their fruits. Now, Marxist thinkers go ahead to say that the only way out of this kind of manipulation is when the common man, the working class, guns up, organize a violent revolution, and destroy the existing state apparatus so that we can adopt a kind of a classless society. Now, 2017 general election, or 2007, let's start from 2007, marked with violence. 2013, they were a little, but they were there. 2017 almost replicated 2007. Now, this was because of the same agenda I'm always talking against, the politics of an us versus them. A keen citizen interested in matters governance and political development in their country will see that irrespective of the pro-hustler proponents being part of the incumbent regime, today they are facing same things that the opposition used to face when they were in good times with their party leader. What does that tell you? It tells you that in as much as the hustler narrative under the BBI campaign has demystified the tribal or the so-called homeboy mentality, like Mr. Odinga put it one day, is that it has failed to demystify the concept of politics of us against them. Why am I saying this? Just a few years ago, or 1 year, I guess it was last year, during a by-election in Kibra, there were chaos. The so-called hustlers were fighting hustlers. Okay, the so-called hustlers who support hustlers were fighting hustlers who support dynasties, according to them. Now, today, we had a by-election earlier today in around 4 wards and constituencies, of course. And a video clip emerged with a so-called pro-hustler proponent slapping a fellow hustler, claiming he was assisting a potential rig of election, something that the currently dubbed dynasty while in opposition complained about. Now, what's funny is that he slapped a very innocent and a very powerless man. Of course, why slap a man as powerless as him when there is the chiefs of elections, the chairman of IEBC and the regional coordinators of IEBC? Why go and hit a young rat when mother rat is there will give back to more? Okay, that's just an analogy, but then it exposes how much bad or how much worse the situation is becoming, even with the introduction of new political strategies. Because, in fact, I will say the tribal line was the lesser evil here. Because if this is the situation in a nearby election, what about an election that will involve all ranks of political leaders? Ask yourself that small question. And you will see, come 2022, if not stopped, if our political leaders won't change, and if the masses will be incited against each other like that, if the society will be divided against two classes, the unseen dynasties and the seen hustlers, then I tell you, a Marxist state will obviously hand Kenya's democracy into the hands of dictatorship without anyone ever noticing it. So my message to you fellow Kenyans, just like I said before, I want to repeat, the bridge is too rotten and we don't have a Grusha Vastnadze who will carry Michael Abashvili close to the next side. Or the wheelbarrow is too damaged. It can't move across the bridge. So be vigilant and take a keen look to read through the lines. Thank you very much for watching. Let's Kodima TV, home of knowledge. A very good evening to you. Welcome to Kodima TV, home of knowledge. This is the voice of the captain. Tonight, I bring to you a closer look into two of the most ubiquitous political strategies that are taking a center stage in Kenya's political battlefield as we edge closer and closer to 2022 general elections. Now, these are BBI, or Building Bridges Initiative, and the Hustlers versus Dynasties narrative. Before we continue, I want to appreciate the fact that the adoption of these two political strategies has brought with it a paradigm shift in Kenya's political and campaign style. From that loosely based on tribal fault lines, to that based on constitutional change, of course, and general societal development when it comes to the pro-Hustler narrative. And of course, as we speak, fellow Kenyans, I know very well that you, as a listener, have taken a side, which is not bad because it's a traditional norm. In a battlefield, one has to take one side. But then, before you took that side,